2022 regular council meeting to order. We've got an open mic, and I think I have one registered for that. Join us, please. Mahmoud? Yeah, just come up and have a seat at the table there. Just make sure the mic is on and just speak directly into that. I'm not sure if your mic is on. Just make sure that yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Welcome.
Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it. My name is Mahmoud, and I have some issue with my neighbor, which is he trespassed my property. And I have discussed this, and I have sent email to City of Tansquin as well. In the beginning, they told me they're going to enforce it and they're going to remove it. As you can see on this page, they sent me an email, which was saying that this may involve the city removing the structure, which will take some time. And I will be updated. And then again, we contacted and they said, we may need to pursue enforcement action to require removal of a ventilation structure. Okay. Now, as you can see, he damaged my property as well. There are pictures. This was in the beginning when I bought the property. This was the first picture, the small fan. So I requested him, it took me 1 year to remove this. He asked me the time. I thought, okay, we are neighbors, we have to go with each other, give him time, be nice with your neighbor. That's what my parents brought me up, you know, be always good to your neighbor. You can change anything, but you cannot change your neighbor unless you have to move from there. So that's why I gave him a time. I said, okay, take your time, remove your things, no problem. Then he asked me second time, again, the time, 2 months again, like he delay it 2 months, and he said, give me more time. I said, okay, take your time, as long as you are willing to remove it. He removed it, and he also enclosed the contract here with him, which is say that he will remove it, and if there is any damage through this system, he will repair it. He damaged the property as well, the roof, and even here, if you see on here is the fan, and there are some oil spilling from the fan. All the dirt is still on my roof. Is still on my roof. Send any of your guys, he can check it. And that's when he was lifting up all the things through the gutter line. He damaged the gutter line, and through the old system, he damaged the roof. I called the guy, roofing company, to give me an estimate for the repairing of the roof. So he gave me this letter, and this is how much it's going to cost me. And if you check, sorry, I'm taking your time. This is where my property begins, from this wall. He built this system plus this on my property. This is taking like quarter of my property. The second picture, you can see it clearly. This all belongs to my roof. This is my roof. I cannot build anything on my roof. At the end, I was giving it up. I couldn't get, the guy told me, he said, go where you want to go. I can buy anyone. He told me literally this. And I was shocked. Then he hired a lawyer, and I cannot afford a lawyer. I'm just surviving in my business. But he hired a lawyer, and then I claim in the court as well. Still, I'm waiting for the trial. I submit, the civil claim, and I talked with his lawyer. He was on the phone. I got a pre-trial conference, and he said he's going to resolve the issue. After some time, the judge told me to send him all these proofs. I sent him. He sent me back other things, which was just nonsense. It was my things which he sent me back, and he didn't want to resolve the issue. So I told him, okay, then we go for a trial. Let the judge to decide. But my question is on you guys. The city of council have give him permit for this structure. First of all, city of Utasquin was known, and they were aware of this issue. I have all the proofs, all the emails that they told me that you have saw that they're gonna enforce it to remove it, the structure. Above that, he applied for a permit, which he was not intended to do because of me, because I have complained about this. So his lawyer told him, okay, go ask for the permit. And he granted a permit. I was surprised, how can you give him permit? He's on my property illegally. He give trouble to the neighbors and to me, and you grant him a permit. This is like, it doesn't make any sense. It is like I'm driving without a license. I'm driving and somebody, the police catch me and I don't have a license. And then I get a fine and I pay, and I pledge on guilty. So then there is a court date would be, I get a court date, to pledge on guilty. And in the meantime, I'm getting a license. And I go with that license and I go to the judge. Here, I got the license because at that time I didn't have license. Now I have a license. So do you think that he's gonna forgive me for that? He's gonna remove the fine? The same issue is with this. You guys, the city of Utasquin has known of this issue, but still they grant him the permission. I'm not telling you guys to favor me. Favor what is right, what is justice. Put yourself, all of you, put yourself in my shoes, in my situation. If your neighbors do the same thing, he's bullying you, he's threatening you, I have complained, I have police file number, police came, then they are all aware of this. Put yourself in my shoes and think, if some your neighbors gonna do the same thing to you guys, do you think, how you gonna feel? And then he get a permit as well. This is like, it's shocking. How can you give a permit? And then they told me there is a final thing is the inspector gonna inspect the roof. I don't know if it's a fire something, if he denied it, then the permit will be, withdraw from him. If not, the city told me they can do nothing about this. So if you guys have any question, please ask me. I'm ready to hear. I just want justice, nothing else. I'm just helpless now. I don't have money to hire a lawyer. I'm just surviving in my business. And this is what is happening to me.
Maybe Sue, you can so if the structure was built over top of his building and the city granted a permit for that, how can that happen?
To the chair and council, I would have to look into the permit process and make sure that actually the permits were pulled and the inspector is the one that would have done that. So we could look into this and bring a report back to council.
So Mahood has been speaking with our administration for quite a while. I was looped into the emails a number of months ago and it kept getting pushed off. So I'm just wondering how we can not have that issue if we've got a complaint by a business owner, a resident, or whoever it happened to be, how that can happen a little bit quicker and these things can be done as opposed to a presentation to council and then having to come back with information when this has been an ongoing issue for a number of months that hasn't been dealt with, as far as I know, because if it comes down to it being a permitting issue or an inspection that allowed that to happen, why we're at this point now that we don't have the information for why we're at this point.
Yeah, I'll look into what happened and why and what we can do to improve the process.
Okay. So we'll have our senior administration get back to you and let you know what's going to happen and how we're going to move forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, one thing when I want to add, I forgot, all the neighbors before, when he built that structure, all the neighbors is aware of it. And I told them, you know, they told me to remove it, break it and throw it away. This is your property. I told them, no, this is Canada and there is a justice. And I'm not going to do this. I'm going to show him that he cannot do this. But after all this, I'm regretting, why didn't I done that before, you know, to break it? Because I don't get any justice here.
Yes. So like I said, our administration is going to follow up with it and they're going to get back to you directly to make sure that we get this resolved. So
Okay.
we'll do what we can on as an organization or as a city. And then they'll be able to tell you what you can do moving forward, whether it's civil litigation or how you can address that.
Okay,
Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you very much. Thanks for the time. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Yuzo. Looking for an adoption of the agenda. Is there anything that needed to be added? Sue?
Administration would like to add a budget update prior to public consultation, please.
Budget update, we will go with. Seventeen F. Anything else? Looking for an adoption of the agenda as amended. Councillor Billingsley, those in favor? Oh. Oh,
So just with the new, I do need Councillor Billingsley to log on. I still have you as not logged on. And Councillor Blatz had actually selected to move the motion. I don't know if that popped up. Sorry. To everyone online, we're just trying a new system through our iCompass. So thank you for your patience while we try this out.
Moved by Councillor Blatz. Just waiting for Councillor Billingsley to get logged in. I've got 6-4, none against, and you're not allowed to abstain. You're having trouble getting logged in?
Yeah, I don't know what.
W. And then no space, 22. Nope.
Oops. 2022. This is the cow. How do I get this is the cow. Where do you find?
So go
Judge Emma?
no, go back up. Can you go just to the homepage of our compass?
Maybe.
I'm just gonna pause that.
Perfect. Carried unanimously. 5A, regular council meeting of December 13th, approval of the minutes.
Yeah. I move that city council accepts the December 13th, 2021 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Moved by Councillor Lonsdale. Any discussion? Errors or omissions? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Put your hands down.
Yeah, I just.
Carried unanimously. Item 7A, we've got delegations. So we've got a presentation from the Winter Shelter Advisory Board.
Good afternoon, council. There is today or this afternoon, we have a January 2022 presentation on behalf of the Winter Shelter Advisory Board. And then just a brief presentation and then an opportunity for council to ask any questions that they might have. One of the objectives of the board and the reason for the report here today is that they are to report to City Council on a monthly basis to ensure that the shelter aligns with both the council and community expectations. The board has still not identified a chair. There has been a lot of work and discussion around getting the shelter up and running. And then there was an emergency situation last week where we had hoped that they would have identified a chair, but that failed to happen. So I will provide an update. The update has been provided by our community development coordinator, Rachel Rarick, who is also online to answer any questions that council might have. But the update is as follows. So since December 20th, the Mustard Seed has been operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week out of the trailer encampment just north of the Walmart. Operational meetings are held every week on a Monday to discuss happenings of the previous week, to provide updates to all stakeholders and to learn where the Mustard Seed requires support. At the table is AHS, Massachusetts Health Services, Sampson Community Wellness, and the MCTC. They all have representatives at the table to assist them, as well as the RCMP and bylaw enforcement. The Mustard Seed has been collaborating regularly with both AHS and Massachusetts Health Services to identify positive COVID cases and to help isolate those individuals. As you folks know, there is no isolation site here in town. So just recently, there were a few COVID positive individuals, and they were transferred to an isolation site within Massachusetts with the help of Massachusetts Health Services. Rachel Rarick, our community development coordinator, has been working and will be working with the Mustard Seed on an emergency safety plan in the case they need to evacuate the facility for any reason. The government of Alberta has provided grant funding for the construction of a wheelchair ramp for people with disabilities. This is currently being built and will be installed soon as well. Tomorrow, we expect that the building of a boardwalk to access the front doors will be installed. All of this is being funded from the Mustard Seeds operating grant. Sampson Community Wellness is supporting the shelter where needed. AHS's Mental Health and Addiction Services is working to provide assistance. As I've previously noted with council, we are experiencing some plumbing concerns with individuals flushing the sanitary wipes. We've discussed with the trailer, the trailer holder, about the possibility of collaborating with other outfitters or other plumbers to get service done in a more timely fashion, and that we have a solution there. And the last piece, actually two last pieces, is that the Mustard Seed is still looking for access to showers for the vulnerable population. And I believe I just received an update here that the shelter will be closed for a couple hours on Friday for a staff meeting, and then they are conducting a deep clean for fumigating. So that work will be happening. That concludes our update. We will be providing these monthly. So you can expect the next update to happen in February 2022. And I do have Rachel Rarick virtually in the event that council has any more questions. So with that, I can take any questions council might have.
Doesn't, who moves it? Okay. Moved by Councillor Nielsen. Any questions, comments, concerns? Ready for the question? Those in favor? Moved by Councillor Nielsen. Any comments, questions? Okay. That, it blocks my. There.
It's blocked all of ours.
Yeah. Councillor Nielsen. Just for that, I'm going to put you on the timer.
It's a good thing you started me at 60 minutes. least that's what mine reads. Thank you. Through the chair to Paul. Paul, you talked about doing a deep clean on Friday. Given that the shelter is open 24/7, like how are they managing the cleaning? Like it sounds like you're shutting down for a couple hours for staff meeting and a deep clean, but when you're not shutting down, how is it adequately cleaned when we still have patrons, clients
Yeah.
in the facility?
Karen, do you know if Rachel is online? Yeah, I'd ask that Rachel Varick take as many of these questions as possible. She's very involved with the mustard seed, and I'm not as in the weeds on the operational information. Rachel, did you hear that question?
Yes, I did. Yes, so the mustard seed, they have a cleaner who they have hired who comes in daily to do a good clean of the floors, the bathrooms and everything. But with last week's incident of the pipes, they have asked for a deep clean of the facility to just make sure that everything is back to to a clean space so that everyone is good.
Thank you.
Councillor Aberley.
Thank you. Through the chair to maybe Paul, but it could be Rachel. I have two questions if possible. The chair of the advisory committee and having problems filling that, do you suspect that that's just due to the nature of it forming so quickly and whether or not people have the ability or the time to do it?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Aberley, I do think it's twofold. One is the mustard seed came in December 5th or 6th, I believe, and it wasn't at 24/7. We did not hold a December board meeting because everybody's resources were so strapped, and we could appreciate that they were trying to staff up and get up to 24/7. And there is also another weekly operational meeting that's also occurring. And so at this point, the Winter Shelter Advisory Board, from our experience last year, was to provide a mechanism to advise City Council on operating a shelter so that we are proactive and ahead of these challenges that we were seeing last year with engaging this community stakeholders and getting ahead of some of the issues that we're seeing. Thus far, we haven't really seen a lot of these types of issues, and the whole idea here is to get to more proactive communication and have those discussions. But we're still kind of in getting up and running. And then last week, when we thought we might have a really good dialogue, we had an emergency that had to be dealt with. So the whole board meeting was kind of hijacked by that. So the mustard seed, as I mentioned before, is also having the weekly operational meetings, which have a lot more people. And so at this point in time, while these advisory board meetings are created with the best of intent, we are still observing just to ensure we're not duplicating efforts here in regards to having these discussions. And in a month from now, we should have the answer to that.
Yeah. Okay. And because what concerned me about that, about not having a chair with the advisory committee, is March 31st is coming quickly, right? So that's concerning me in that of there'll be a chair for a month. So I don't expect an answer for that, but just. And then my second question, if I may, it's through the chair to Rachel. How much are they expecting this really frigid weather dealing with the pipes freezing? Like, is plugging toilets going to be an ongoing issue even as we started today at the -5?
So the pipes were actually, the cause of it was the wipes going down the pipes and plugging up, which they call an impeller, and the grinder that grinds everything up. That is what failed. So they have replaced it. So we're hopeful that it will do its best. But if there's continued to put the wipes down the pipes, then it will continue to be a problem. But with the cold, the only problem that we were having was with it just was cold outside, but that wasn't the cause of the pipes freezing or anything. The pipes weren't frozen.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
And I can't. Mine doesn't come up. See, I deleted it so I
Yeah.
could actually,
So, yeah, so the reason for that is because you moved it. So the assumption is if you move the motion that you are in favor of it.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if you just take the left edge
Yeah, gotcha.
and you can just slide it across, so
Yeah.
then you can see everything.
Thank you.
Even I figured.
That was my internal tutorial. So with that, Councilor Nielsen.
Thank you. So when you pull it from the consent agenda, that would be done prior to the adoption of the agenda?
No, now,
It would be done at this point.
when we get to the consent agenda portion, that's when you would pull the item from the consent agenda, not when you're adopting the agenda. The
Thank you.
agenda's, yeah, the agenda's already set. Just because we're moving stuff around doesn't mean that we're adding or subtracting anything from the agenda.
And so if I was asking to remove something from the consent agenda, I would ask for it to be located somewhere else within the agenda,
Correct. You just have to say you want to pull it and I'll put it
somewhere.
somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further?
Just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, so if I make the motion to approve the consent agenda, Counselor Nielsen could say, I would like to pull
100%.
this out
And-
after I've made the motion.
I would just, before the motion is made, I'd be asking if anything needs to be pulled from the consent
okay.
agenda. Not that that matters, I don't think, whether you've made the motion or not, we can still pull it from the consent agenda. And it only takes one person to want to pull that from the consent agenda. We don't need consensus to pull that from the consent agenda.
Thank you.
With that being said, would you like to make a motion?
I haven't called for the vote. So my question is just on my end. I can send for the votes for our city council to approve all items listed under consent agenda. Is that the one to send for right now? Okay.
But we need somebody, yeah, somebody to move that and then we'll have the vote.
There's a place to move it.
That was Councillor Elliott.
Such as it is.
All right. We've got correspondence from the RCMP. Item 8B. Oh, is it? Oh, sorry. Oh, I see what you did there. Thanks for consenting to the RCMP letter. Item 13A, emergency management bylaw.
Good afternoon, council. Apologies for the dramatic delay there. This item before you here today is to amend the existing emergency management bylaw in response to a recent review by the Alberta Emergency Management Agency. On November 8th, both Chief Wilkinson and I attended an annual review of the municipal emergency response plan that had been conducted through the Alberta Emergency Management Agency. Through that review, they identified that our current bylaw does not reflect the training and command structure that is utilized by the city. Just so council is aware, most municipalities as well as City Wetaskiwin utilize the incident command system, or better known as ICS. That is the structure to which our organization trains and responds to these incidents, and our bylaw must reflect that, neither in the definition or a section in the bylaw. So the current version that is in front of you, you should have a red-lined version of the bylaw that highlights the specific changes. And we are, it's a very minor change in that it's just defining the ICS within the bylaw, which will be updated to adhere to the Government of Alberta standards. So with that, I conclude my presentation and look for your direction.
I just like that it didn't say that the mayor caused the emergency, just that I was incapacitated by it. Councillor Blatz moves first reading. Nobody is requesting to speak. Those in favor? Ready for the question? Carried unanimously. Second reading. We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Third reading. Oh, sorry, unanimous consent to third reading. Ready for the question? Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Third and final reading. Ready for the question? Those in favor? Also carried unanimously. Thank you. 13B, 2022 fees and charges bylaw, amended Schedule C, planning fee update. Welcome, sir.
That could be as eloquent as Paul. It's a hard hill to climb. So just a couple quick updates. So good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The request before you today is to request for an update to the fees and charges bylaw. After my presentation to Council in December on the updated fees and charges bylaw, a couple of errors were noted that now require approval to correct. The errors and corresponding corrections are as follows. So number one, a home office development permit fee. So prior to December 13th, 2021, the fee for the service was $75. In December, I requested Council to update this fee to $0, which was ultimately approved. And after review of this update, administration is requesting to change the value for the service from $0 to not applicable and remove this charge from Schedule C, which would ultimately mean that a development permit would not be required for a home office. The second correction required would be for a minor home-based business development fee. So again, prior to December 13th, 2021, the fee for the service was $75. In December, I requested Council to update this fee to $0, which was ultimately approved. And after review of this update, administration is requested to change the fee for this service from $0 back to $75, ultimately putting it back into Schedule C. So based on this information, administration is requesting that council's approval to move forward in updating the user or the fees and charges bylaw with the new rates requested starting January 10th, 2022. And I'll be happy to take any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair. So what changed that we went from 75 to 0, then back to 75? What was the rationale behind all that?
Yeah. So through the mayor to Councilor Nielsen, administration just made an error when they were updating the spreadsheet. And they made an incorrect error, or they made an error and they should have never actually taken that out. So we're just putting it back to where it was before.
Okay, and can you differentiate for me what a minor home-based business is versus what a major home-based business?
So through the mayor, could I ask Kathy, would you be able to tell the difference between the development? things? Administration is just going to take a look at that for you right now.
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen. Sorry, I'm just getting some information from Andrew Chell. The, I guess, definition of a minor home-based business would be one visit per day, like one client per day, where the home office has no customer visits whatsoever. It's just basically an office and a telephone.
And is there a different fee for a major home-based business?
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, yes, there is.
And that would be what?
I just have to refer to the bylaw here. I believe it's $150, but I just need to double check.
And then my last question would relate to, is this the means by which we track home-based businesses through development? Permits? Like, how do we track home-based businesses?
To your worship, Councilor Nielsen, yes, that's how we track home-based businesses at this time, is through the business licenses, yes.
So through the chair then to Alan, if I'm running a home-based business, whether it's a minor business or a major business, and I choose not to take out a business license, you would never know. Maybe this shouldn't be said in a public meeting, but
Through the mayor to Councilor Nelson, that is correct. Unless somebody complains because there's too much parking in front, in which time, bylaw or development will have a look at it and then talk to bylaw in regards to trying to address the issue.
thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, sorry, took a while to find that. So it is $150 for the major home-based businesses, as well as the home-based businesses are tracked through business licenses, which is an annual removal.
Thank you.
Ready for the question? Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Unanimous consent to third reading. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. And third and final reading. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 13C, operating line of credit, our borrowing bylaw.
So thank you again. So the second request before you today is a decision to replace the current annual borrowing bylaw with an operating line of credit borrowing bylaw. So essentially, based on the Municipal Government Act, Section 256, a borrowing bylaw is passed to make debt instruments available, such as line of credit, credit card, or other borrowing, if required throughout the year, to allow the city to meet its obligations or its operational obligations prior to the collection of the bulk of property taxes, which generally happen within the second quarter of the year. Previously, administration would request council on an annual basis to approve the annual borrowing bylaw, but by repealing the annual borrowing bylaw and implementing the operating line of credit borrowing bylaw, council would provide administration with the required approval levels for borrowing without having to repeal and implement bylaws on an annual basis. So essentially, these two borrowing bylaws do the same thing. It just alleviates council from having to repeal and implement new bylaws every year. So based on the continuous presentation to council of this request, administration is recommended to repeal the current annual borrowing bylaw and enact an operating line of credit borrowing bylaw. And again, I'll be able to answer any questions that you have.
First reading of our borrowing bylaw. Any discussion? Moved by Councillor Lonsdale.
I'm trying to find a request to speak here. Just
Only there was an easy way. There you go. Oh, Councillor Billingsley.
So is it such a bad thing to repeal and to having to re-establish a borrowing bylaw just for information? So I guess my concern about this is that it just automatically happens and we don't know or aren't given us an update, a fiscal update, which we haven't been getting a whole lot of it, and any financial information would be nice to have.
Yes, so through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, you're absolutely correct. That is definitely something that finance administration is working on getting for you this year. These two things are two totally different issues. One of them is a financial update, which we absolutely need to get in front of council. The other one is administration is just bringing this back every year. It's the same essential borrowing bylaw. The numbers may be tweaked from year to year, but essentially the contents are the exact same. So it essentially provides administration with the roadmap and exactly what they're allowed to do, irregardless of what that forecast would look like specifically.
But if there was something that was a mess or a possible red flag,
Certainly.
then at least we would then have at least some form of sober second thought. Is that? I just worry that out of sight, out of mind, it's just rubber stamped, it's done, and it's something that we don't take a look at, I guess is my concern. And I, even though it really is just rubber stamped when it's passed on to us anyway. I guess my question would be then, what do most municipalities do it the way we currently do it, or the way it's being proposed?
So through the mayor to council buildings, we obviously don't know exactly what a lot of other municipalities are doing. From the research that we have, it is kind of half a dozen are here and half a dozen are there. So there are some municipalities, big or small, that will come back to council every year and ask for an annual boring bylaw. There are other ones that have taken more of a, not a fast track, but a fast track approach where they say, here is what administration is allowed to do is from a borrowing perspective. And those are your rules, and that's the road you have to stay on.
Thank you.
I absolutely can.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I can sing for you.
Just through to David. Do we have to repeal the first bylaw? We can't pass this new bylaw until we repeal the old one, can we?
Correct. So through the mayor to Councillor Elliott, yes, we would have to, the bylaw that is in there for right now is only in there for 2021. So we would have to repeal that and replace it with a new bylaw, whether that be an annual boring bylaw, if that's what council wishes to do, or whether it is the operating line of credit borrowing bylaw, which would be continuous. Either way, we need to repeal 2021's annual borrowing bylaw.
Which means that should be done before this motion to implement the operating line of credit. Or else we've got two motions on the books.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Elliott, absolutely. As part of this process, we would repeal the first bylaw and then enact an operating line of credit borrowing bylaw.
But that's not outlined here. Or did I miss something?
Through the mayor to Councillor Elliott and the rest of council. So effectively, the annual borrowing bylaws are for only 1 year period. Mr. Reynolds mentioned 2021. The last bylaw for the city was in 2020. So there wasn't one put in place in 2021, unless I totally missed it, but I didn't see it. In regards to other municipalities that follow this process, Ms. Howard did work formally for the city of St. Albert, which this actual bylaw is predicated on.
Thank you. So it was only for 1 year, so it's over and done with at the end of December 2021.
That is correct. When it's.
So at this point, we don't even have a bylaw then.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Covers you? Councillor Nielsen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My concern is similar to Councillor Billingsley. We probably spent more time talking about why we should implement this than talking about simply doing it every year. I have problems personally authorizing an ongoing expenditure of millions of dollars, even though I know in advance what it's for, without any kind of presentation to council. I think it's I don't think it's fair to the taxpayer that I would authorize that kind of ongoing expenditure, even though I know why it's there. So I won't be supporting this as it's written. So it wasn't a question, it was a comment.
Alan?
Through the mayor to council, and my apologies. I will now log into this so I can get onto the speakers list. Didn't realize I had to do that. So understand council's concern. This isn't necessarily an expenditure bylaw. This is a borrowing bylaw to cover between now and when the taxes come in, should we be short. As Mr. Reynolds has indicated, there will be quarterly updates and council should know whether we're going to be short or not. Generally speaking, there is enough money unless it's locked into an investment account that over the recent years, I don't believe, at least I know in 2020 and 2021, that a city hasn't had to borrow on a line of credit. And it is just a placeholder should we have to do that because taxes haven't come in. Though I do understand council's concerns.
And this is just a way so that we cut a step out for administration and council. This is something that we approve annually. So it's not going above and beyond or changing anything that we're doing currently. It's just making it so that administration doesn't have to keep bringing it back to council to go through this step. So nothing's changing. The reporting isn't changing. It's just giving administration one less thing to have to bring back to council. Councillor Billingsley.
So would we, I don't know who this question will be addressed to, will we get a report at some point of knowing that this is being done? Because when we do the borrowing, then it past the bylaw, we at least know that, yes, we had to do something, whereas this would just be an internal piece and we would never know.
You wouldn't very likely have gotten an update if they needed to use that anyways. Like, so this is set up, right? This is set up so that if it needs to be done, it gets done. In previous years, when we've done it annually, we've never gotten a report back or not even a request back to council because we've already given it in this motion, but we've never had a report back saying we had to borrow X number of dollars for this. It was part of the quarterly reporting if or when we got it. So it's not changing anything. All it does is take one step out of administration's job, I guess, to bring back to council for approval. Anything else? Councillor Everly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair to maybe council, but it could be administration, so I don't really know. As we're talking about taking that step out and being concerned whether or not people, administration is coming back to council with these expenditures, how often has that had to happen where council has said no to that expenditure? Like, that's where I'm wondering, is that a step that?
So we wouldn't be saying no to the expenditure. The only way that they can spend it is if it's part of our budget. So they're not
Right.
going over and above anything that we haven't already approved. This is just so that if we don't have the money come, if all of a sudden everybody in Wetaskiwin doesn't pay their taxes, we still have to operate.
Yeah. So, and for me, and it could just be an understanding truly what the difference between the two of them are, because if that spending is happening because it's already been approved in a budget,
The
then.
only way they can spend is if it's approved.
Thank you.
Anything else? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Just waiting on one person. Councilor Platts. There we go. No, we're good now. Carried. Second reading. Any discussion? Ready for the question? Those in favor? Carried. Unanimous consent for third reading. We're ready for the question. Carried unanimously. And third and final reading. Ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried. Item 13D, terms of reference schedule. Schedule A, update for bylaw 2005-21.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. As per direction at the organizational meeting, administration has begun to develop or add in existing terms of reference to the schedule for councils, committees, and boards bylaw. The first ones that we have available are the ones in front of you today, and because it is the schedule, we only have one reading for each one. It's not an actual bylaw update, just the schedule update. So we had an existing, the first one is the Agenda Review Committee, open for discussion on that. The second one is the EDI or Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. That terms of reference was created previously, and that committee has been going for well over a year now. The next one is the Regional Safety and Wellbeing Committee terms of reference. And the last one is the Winter Emergency Shelter Advisory Board terms of reference. Keeping in mind that some of these are still moving and may potentially change as we go through, but these were the existing ones that were either in place or being proposed as the initial start place for these boards and committees. And as they evolve, we would come back to council and update those terms of references. So I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Looking for the first one, the Agenda Review Committee. Moved by Councillor Elliott. Councillor Elliott, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question through you to Sue. How do council members bring their items to this committee? Do they just bring them through the mayor, the deputy mayor? And is there a timeline for that?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, you would bring motions forward like you do for any meeting. So you give a notice of motion, or you can contact me outside of the council meetings and we can add them to future agendas. The only, the mayor and deputy mayor approve the COW and council agendas the week before. This process is going to allow them to actually see what's coming for the entire year and start to have more discussions around that. But as far as what gets added, council does not add to those at those meetings. It's more about information about what's coming and then their approval of the upcoming agenda. If you want something added, you would just give a notice of motion as per your bylaw.
Thank you.
Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair to Karen, and I'm sorry, this is not on topic, but it maybe is. When this comes up, those people online, do they see what we're seeing? Are they seeing the motion come forward and how people are voting and all that?
So they're not seeing the minutes that I'm working on right now. They're seeing what's on your monitors at the moment.
So they would see the actual motion? And
Yes.
for and against, and then they would see.
I can if you'd like me to. That's just something on the back end
okay.
administratively that I'm working on.
No, I was just
So,
wondering whether we should be reading these motions or whether people
Oh,
actually
yes.
see what we're seeing. So I'm good. So
Yeah.
thank you for indulging me.
You're welcome.
Anything further? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. And the D&I task force, bylaw. Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Any discussion? Ready for the question? Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Regional Safety and Wellbeing Committee. Thank you, Councillor Aberley. Any discussion? Councillor Elliott, I didn't know that you wanted to speak to this.
At my age, I could forget the question by the time I get logged in. Just a couple of things. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Number one, under objectives, bullet number 1, I was just wondering if we need to identify family violence as a separate item. It seems to be an all-encompassing subject there. And I just wondered if we needed to maybe be more specific. That has arisen before in council chambers, and I think it maybe should be added to the list.
Through the Mayor, Councillor Elliott, those examples that were provided there were a first blush at topics that might be included in a conversation around Regional Safety and Wellbeing Committee. What's driving this work is our involvement with the Canadian Municipal Crime Prevention Association of Canada. And so as part of that, once that project gets going, from engaging the community and determining where the areas of focus need to be, that's what would drive a lot of the discussion at that table.
Thank you. I just have a couple of other questions, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
Bullet number 5 says increase regional wellness and safety, and then it's got in the region. Well, to me, that seems to be redundant. In bullet number 6, it says engage the community to build support for, but it really doesn't say what it's building support for. At least the way I read it.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Elliott, I think it was a piece that we didn't finish the sentence. So to build support for issues related to community safety and well-being.
Okay. I'm going to go into membership now. Just are all appointees voting members, and is it 1 vote per organization?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Elliott. No, we've had a lot of discussion around this. There is no voting. So the intent of this is to essentially come together and speak to issues around community safety and well-being, including regional stakeholders, but going into I call it more advanced governance structures with voting and stuff like that, we believe would detract away from the substance and a lot more of the robustness around the discussion. So at this point, administration is recommending to not have any voting as part of this committee.
But then underneath the bullets, it says the community may request the advice or participation, non-voting, of individuals or organizations for identified coalitions, task forces.
Yeah.
So it says non-voting, but then who's the voting?
Yeah, through the Mayor to Councillor Elliott. So this was when we originally provided this, that was the discussion that was happening at the table, was whether we should have the voting versus the non-voting. And since that time, we've decided to scrap voting entirely. So that needs to be stricken from the terms of reference.
Okay. So this is just a draft and we're just
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Elliott, both the Regional Safety and Wellbeing Committee as well as the Wetaskiwin Winter Shelter Advisory Board are both in their infancy. And when we provided these, there's been a lot of ebbs and flows with how these the terms of reference for these committees currently look. What you're seeing here is something we provided back in October, November of 2021. Since that time, there has been more evolutions, and there will most likely continue to be until we start until the work around this specific committee starts to take hold, which it still has not. We've been trying to get the terms of reference up and running now for a good chunk of 2021.
So just further to that then, Mr. Mayor, through to Paul. So this is just temporary, or this is going to be included now, but as soon as it's revised, we will get a revision to approve.
Through the mayor to Councillor Elliott, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Anything further? Ready for the question, those in favor? Yeah, you voted against. That's okay. It passed. It will be forever in record.
It is possible for me to resend for votes if that's required.
We will recall for votes. See, we're making history today.
Did a new notification come up, Councillor Elliott? No. Okay. I'm just going to clear it and I'll start from scratch.
Carried unanimously. And the Winter Emergency Shelter Advisory Board terms of reference. Moved by Councillor Lonsdale. Any discussion? Ready for the question? Those in favor? Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just not going that as fast as you, I guess.
That's okay.
In the first sentence, just I suggest we delete "and work" because it seems to be repetitive. And under objectives, the word "vulnerable people" is used, and I think we've had discussions amongst council that we're not dealing with the vulnerable people at this point in time because we can't deal with all vulnerable people. What we're dealing with homeless people. And I was wondering if Maskwacis should be included in the membership, Maskwacis Health. And I'm wondering as well, Paul, if there should be any at-large members of this. I have them written down if you want me to repeat them.
Through the mayor to Councillor Elliott, I think I've got most of that. So let's speak to each of them one at a time. We can, at the first sentence, we can absolutely rework that. In regards to the term vulnerable persons, that's a term that administration's been using now since I started to describe the homeless population, but at the same time, I understand that vulnerable is much broader than just homelessness. So I've got no problems changing it to homelessness. We can do that.
Maskwacis Health being included in the.
Yes, that is through the mayor to Councillor Elliott. Thank you. I would concur. I would agree. And we have reached out to them since our meeting on Friday to be included in those discussions, and they are looking to be a willing participant moving forward. So we can add them for sure.
And I'm wondering, this is called a regional committee, and you have the co-chairs. The agenda is being set in collaboration with the city, but this is a regional committee, so why is collaboration being done with the city?
Through the mayor to Councillor Elliott, this is the Winter Shelter Advisory Committee. While we do have regional stakeholders at the table for this, the whole intent of this is to advise City Council on the operations of a 24/7 winter shelter. And so the agendas for those meetings are being set in collaboration with the city to ensure that the meetings are being focused in a way that's not detracting to the operations of the facility and are focused more on advising council and thinking proactively on the issues that we would be dealing with as a community.
Okay. Another one says represent the city at council events. I'm not sure, like, are you talking, what kind of events would you be having this individual represent the city?
Through the mayor to Councillor Elliott, I think I'd like to change that to council meetings. So they do, they are to come monthly to report to council.
Okay. And then it says the city is solely responsible for communicating with the public and members. Would not each member of this committee be able to report back to their respective groups?
Through the mayor to Councillor Elliott, absolutely. But I think that clause was put in there so that we don't have individuals from the membership of the committee speaking on behalf of the city of Wetaskiwin in regards to what is happening with the winter shelter. So that was put in there to better control the message on behalf of the city.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome, Councillor. Does anybody need to recall the vote, or are we okay with continuing on? No, just that some of the people had already or had voted prior to you saying that you wanted to speak. So just in case they wanted to change their vote. Councillor Nielsen.
No, I'm fine, thank you. Well, guess I can delete that or append it or remove it or something. I'm good, thank you.
Just waiting on Councillor Blatz again.
So I just cleared it and we'll do another send.
All right, we're ready for the question. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Council schedules and attendance committees reports will be handled next meeting. And we move to item 16, an in-camera session. Falls under section 24 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Need a motion to come out of camera.
I move that the city council continues the meeting in public.
Moved by Councillor Elliott. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. There it did. Perfect. Carried unanimously. Item 17A,
Sorry, can we get that motion
Oh,
coming out?
right, yep. Negative. Oh, there we go. Yep. You betcha. That's the same as the other motions that pop up. Someone would like to make that motion? It pops up when you have the vote on the screen.
I move that city council cancel the January 1st, 2022 penalty for tax roll number 391420 if payment of all arrears is received within 30 days.
Moved by Counselor Elliott. Ready, sorry, any discussion? Ready for the question? Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Item 17A. City-owned building lease policy. I assume this will be Paul. And
Yeah, actually, good afternoon, everyone. It'll be myself presenting. So good afternoon, Mayor Gandam and members of council.
welcome, Natasha.
Thanks. I'm a little sick, so if I sound a little odd, that's why, but hopefully I can get through it here for you guys. On May 10th and June 14th of last year, administration brought the proposed city-owned building lease policy to committee of the whole meetings for council's review. The proposed policy provides direction that enables administration to manage leases in city-owned buildings in a fair and consistent manner. There are currently 7 organizations leasing space in 3 city-owned facilities. Many inconsistencies, including lease rates, exist between the individual agreements. And furthermore, the majority of the agreements are up for renewal. So the policy classifies organizations as either a not-for-profit or for-profit organization. Organizations that have not-for-profit status are able to receive a lease rate that is 50% of the appraised market value. For-profit organizations are required to pay market value. Under this policy, council is able to make exceptions for organizations through council resolution, and an appraisal to determine market value has already been completed for the multiplex. And if the policy is approved, administration will move forward with having assessments completed for the other city facilities with leased space. Administration has also brought this policy to the ICF committee for review on August 16th and December 20th of last year. And overall, the committee did not recommend any changes to the policy. Thank you. That concludes my presentation, council, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
No, just waiting for someone to make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion so we can have discussion.
I move that city council approves the city-owned building lease policy as presented at the January 10th, 2022 meeting.
Moved by Counselor Lonsdale. Any discussion? Counselor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of questions. Number one, how were the lease rates determined? Like with the market value?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott. Sorry, are you asking about how the previous rates were determined, or the ones right
The
now?
market values, so that how much per square foot each of the facilities is worth.
Right, so we had an appraiser come out to the multiplex and look at all the different spaces. And then he provided a report based on what he saw at the multiplex, and then also comparators from the region.
Okay, thank you. And it said somewhere in the document, excuse me, that we would look at some exceptions, and I'm wondering if we're going to make exceptions because some people might not be able to pay, or they may lose some of their participants. If we're going to be looking at making exceptions, I'm wondering how we can pass a blanket resolution. So we're going to make an exception for the for the craftspeople. We're going to make an exception for the curlers. We're going to make an exception for senior curlers, or whatever we do. If we're going to be doing all of those different exceptions, why don't we just, what I'm afraid of is we're going to lose participants in a number of different activities that we have in our community. If all of a sudden it goes up that the gymnastics club has to pay an extra $10,000 a year, how many of those participants might not be able to be part of that group anymore because their registration fees will be too high? So we're going through inflation, we're going through a pandemic, we're going through all sorts of things. We're trying to make people happy. We're trying to keep them active. And I see if we make these costs prohibitive, we're going to lose people who would benefit from this. So I don't know if that's a question or a comment.
Paul?
Through the mayor to Councillor Elliott. It should be noted that the example that you've provided, the majority of current tenants are actually classified as not-for-profits. The one that is not is the Precision Gymnastics. Natasha, might I ask you just to provide an overview of the impact that this policy would have on those organizations that are both private and not-for-profit?
Yeah, so obviously the biggest impact would be to Precision Gymnastics, as they're our only for-profit tenant currently. Obviously, when we reached out to the other users, no one's excited about an increase to rates. However, there hasn't been any increase specifically for the multiplex users since 2018. And it would be a gradual implementation. So in one of my previous RFDs that I brought before council, it was noted in there that we would implement this over a 3-year period. So it wouldn't like be users would be going from, you know, $2 a square foot to 10 or anything like that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of questions here. In the document, it talked about if this policy is not approved for the lease agreements for 3 tenants, it could prevent them from continuing to deliver services to the community. And yet we also have 5 lease agreements, which we're not taking action on because we don't have enough data. Does this not prevent them from being able to deliver services as well? Or do they just continue under the same lease agreement until it's changed?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, that is how we've been operating. So we've kind of left them alone, and they're just continuing to operate as they have for many years.
So part of this for me is awkward because we've identified 8 leasees, but we're only talking about 3. And I guess if we recognize that rental rates are only as good as the people are prepared to pay them. My concern is we've had many discussions of strategic planning dealing with vacancy rates and all the rest of it. And my greatest concern is if this is implemented, will we in fact have another empty building in our inventory? And I'd like to understand the full impact of all of the multiplex leases if they were to leave. So right now, we know it's costing X number of dollars to operate the facility, and we know what we're getting for rent, so we know what the discrepancy is. In other words, how much those groups are being subsidized. But I don't know if we have 3 tenants vacate the building, what it's going to cost to operate the building without any income coming in at all. And so I'm being asked to make a decision, and yet I don't know the financial implications of potentially losing 3 tenants completely, but still having to maintain heat the building and do repairs on it and so forth, until we get 3 more groups ready to come in and pay $10 a square foot for the space. So what kind of work would it take to provide that information that I just referred to?
Through the mayor to Councillor Nielsen, just for a piece of clarification for me, when you talk about the overall impacts to them vacating the building, specifically, what are you looking for in that analysis?
I guess right now we understand that, I believe I understand, that it's costing the city to have these 3 programs running. It's a losing proposition financially. So these programs are being subsidized by X number of dollars. If we have no revenue, but we still have to keep the lights on and the heat running, what is that cost going to be? So I can make a comparison is, are we better off to leave these folks in at a smaller rate and be out of pocket X dollars? Are we better off to see them vacate, but see the cost go up X plus Y? Or are we actually saving money to say goodbye to our tenants?
Through the mayor to Councillor Nielsen, administration could take this away and do a more further detailed analysis to look at the total cost on the multiplex specifically. I should note that what's driving this, council, is multiplex had 3 leases that were expiring. The history of I don't know if I want to blanket the whole city, but the history of previous administrations on managing leases has been very inconsistent. And we use the term sweetheart deals have been done quite a lot in the past as far as how certain leases have come to be. And so what administration is looking to do through this policy is to provide a consistent mechanism so that we are able to create leases or contracts with these entities, and so that we are not favoring and that those sweetheart deals essentially go away. And so what this policy is doing is acknowledging that, council, you are subsidizing these agencies or organizations for operating within those facilities. What we're recommending is that subsidization makes a lot of sense for not-for-profits. Overall, the impact to the fiscal impact, we believe, to the not-for-profit agencies as outlined in this policy is minimal and would reflect inflationary costs. The impact to private companies is perhaps substantial. And so I guess what administration would be looking for is direction from council on how much you're willing to subsidize not-for-profits versus private companies to help us provide that feedback to help move this policy forward and get to a spot where we can finalize this policy and then move forward on those leases.
May I continue? I guess I'm wondering, because we have 5 other leasees identified, but no action being taken. I might suggest that we've got 5 leasees that have got sweetheart deals, but we're not even ready to address them. And I'm not being, not trying to be inappropriate with those comments. I don't know if $300 for an office space is a sweetheart deal or not. But if they were paying for office space downtown, would they get it for $300? I don't know. But so if we're worried about sweetheart deals, should we be worried about sweetheart deals for all 8 leasees? Or only 3 in the multiplex? And again, my greatest concern is in the event that we were to lose all our leasees, and certainly the private one, we jackhammered a great big hole in the floor to create a jumping pit. So it's not like we're going to to my knowledge, refurbish cheaply and create 4 or 5 more sheets of curling ice. Do we have a plan in place that if these people leave, what are we going to do with the facilities? Or are we simply talking a dollars and cents decision at this point, and we'll worry about what happens if it happens? And that concerns me.
What bothers me is that we've got a beg forgiveness, don't ask permission situation where we had signed a lease agreement with a not-for-profit that all of a sudden turned to a for-profit. So why should the city be subsidizing a for-profit organization? If that's the case, then why aren't we subsidizing other for-profit organizations within the city who provide a service to our residents that maybe can't afford the rent or aren't making enough money in the endeavor that they've got on the go? And I don't want to name specifics, but if there was a different business within the city of Wetaskiwin who was not doing so well because of COVID or because of the economy or because of 19 other reasons, should we then be subsidizing them because they provide a service to the residents of Wetaskiwin? So before you go and make a drastic change within your organization, maybe find out the implication of what that looks like moving forward. I don't know why the city needs to be the one subsidizing somebody else's decision who then potentially is struggling to make ends meet because they can't pay fair market value for their business in a city building, no less. Councillor Billingsley.
Natasha, through the chair, are any of these leases triple net? Like, do any of them pay utilities? Well, I guess there wouldn't be any property tax, but do they pay utilities or any other costs other than the rent itself?
Through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, no, they do not. It is just the set lease rate.
Okay, then I think that give direction to administration on making that calculate, because I'm going to guess that the ice plant at the curling rink would probably be very expensive to run. And I don't know if those are all the costs that are involved. And getting back to the gymnastics club, tough to argue with your point, Mr. Mayor. Having said that, I don't know what the heck else would ever go into that location if they chose not to be there. And it becomes a balancing act of having a facility that you're at least collecting something as opposed to nothing. So what's that fair market value? But your point is well heard and well founded. I don't know. My big concern is that They're going from 36,000 or 37,000 to $95,000. I have no idea how profitable they are, and it's none of my damn business. But I suspect that it's probably not a multi-million-dollar operation.
Which is why I don't.
I get it. I get it.
Counselor Everly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair to council, and I am similar, when I was first reading this, I was thinking as Councillor Nielsen was, I'd rather have people in the building than the building just empty. There are specific spaces for at least these three groups, and that makes good. But one of the things that really questions me or really brings to my attention is the thought that even these sort of half prices for the nonprofits won't make a difference on those nonprofits. And it is the two that are there. And I can't see that being true. If you look at the Wetaskiwin or the Arts and Crafts Center, that's still doubling their current rent. And at a time where the arts is struggling under this agreement, I would need to see, to agree to something like this, I would need to see better into what these operating grants were, because I think that that could kill the very small ones. Is when you're looking at that, $4,000 will kill a small nonprofit. So I'm concerned with this as it's written, without understanding what the further granting towards these small groups would be.
And that's the discussion of council, is how much do we subsidize programs or events going on within the city? And I fully support the nonprofits or the not-for-profits that do that work and provide those programs and services to our residents. What I don't is a for-profit business that is being subsidized by the city in a city building. And I've heard the argument that you can have a look at my financials, we're not making a ton of money, and if that's the case, then why get into that business at all? Which is not, again, my responsibility or my business. What my business is to make sure that city facilities are being operated. We're subsidizing those programs for our residents, and we're not subsidizing business owners. And that's what I struggle with. And I guess, had I known that a number of years ago when we were voting on splitting the curling rink for program being brought into the city that was going to be wonderful for our kids, which it absolutely is. Had I known that there was going to be a change in management or the structure of which that business operated, I probably wouldn't have voted, not even probably, I wouldn't have voted in favor of splitting up the curling rink to subsidize a for-profit business. And again, it's beg forgiveness, don't ask permission. Councillor Blatz.
So my question is definitely kind of aside from this discussion, but for some reason, this part just doesn't make any sense in my head, and it could be a silly question, but under the Wetaskiwin Curling Club, for their current total annually, previously it was $21,628.98, and the proposed total annually has changed to $28,825 for a 6-month lease. This question is either to Natasha or to Paul, I'm not sure which, but does that mean that they're only going to be operating for 6 months instead of a full year? Or is that saying that they would have to pay that fee twice if they want to operate year round?
Through the chair to Councillor Blatz, that's not a silly question at all. It is a bit confusing. So yeah, the Wetaskiwin Curling Club operates October to March, so that's 6 months. So if you take their square footage times by the amount per square foot, and then divide that out monthly, times it by 6, that's the total that you come to.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you. is there a reason, like, these aren't all the city-owned buildings that we have leases for? Like, we've got a hall over in used to be the old
Well, the Kinsman Hall?
Kinsman Hall, yes, thank you. That's a city-owned building as well. Is there a reason why we're not having conversations about that when we're talking about this lease agreements as well?
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, when I wrote this, these were all the different organizations that I was aware of in her buildings. So yeah, I could reach out to Paul and Sue further about Kinsman Hall because I did not know that.
Thank you. And I'd like to respond to Mr. Mayor's comments about subsidizing a for-profit. I don't disagree with the argument at all that you're making. And the reason I asked the question about what it costs to have an empty building versus what it costs to have a building that we're getting some revenue on is really driving to some degree at that very point. I don't know whether they can sustain a 300% increase. And maybe we shouldn't be concerned about that at all, except that when that decision is made, there is still a cost to the city to keep the lights on and the gas running and all that kind of stuff. And I'd like to understand the differential between those two. Because even though we've got a cost comparison at $10 a square foot, to be honest, some of those comparators, as I recall them, and I stand corrected, were from other communities that certainly were more vibrant business communities than our own. I don't recall it was all just what it would cost you to rent a big empty Quonset in downtown Wetaskiwin. And so in some of those comparators, whether it's Beaumont or Leduc or whomever, I don't know that $10 is a good comparative for our community. And I'm not looking at a big handout to the gymnastics club. I'd like to understand what it costs, the differential, when that building becomes vacant, because I am concerned that will be vacant.
Covers you?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Seems to me, just as an aside, that it was about $100,000 a year for this building when it sat idle from 1986 on to keep the lights on and to keep it warm and everything, but I'm not positive, but it was a fair chunk of change. Just to answer Councillor Billingsley, Natasha, if I'm not mistaken, there's only one meter on that whole facility, right? And that's why utilities were such a challenge to divide by the number of participants in the building?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, that is correct. There is just one meter, so it is hard to distinguish who uses what.
And it was going to be cost prohibitive to try and put different meters in, as I remember. The other thing is, I think the ice plant in the curling rink comes from the arena, does it not?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, that is correct. There is an ice plant located just off Arena 1, and then there's brine lines underneath the parking lot to the curling rink.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, would it be okay if I made a motion to table? I would like to move that council table the city-owned building lease policy until appraised market value of facilities is determined, of all facilities is determined. Table that city-owned building lease policy be tabled until appraised market value of all facilities is determined.
Once the motion to table has been made,
No, I know. But there's a motion on the floor.
I know, but it's tabling it.
You're allowed to do that. Okay, cool. Just want to make sure.
That's
Counselor,
su-
sorry,
tabling
Counselor,
supersedes, correct? That's why I made sure. Okay.
Counselor Elliott, do you mind reading that one more time, please?
I move that we table the city-owned building lease policy until appraised market value of all facilities is determined.
Thank you. I also just, yes, yeah,
Okay, tabling motion as presented by Counselor Elliott. Ready for the question? Those in favor?
okay, let me clear and go back. What I can do, I can also move it over to everyone's monitors as well.
Oops.
Yeah, so I just can't vote because it just keeps on my machine. Because it just keeps on showing the first. It's actually the table.
Okay,
Just at the table. I voted.
You did?
you did.
Oh,
I can adjust that on my end.
I don't have it. I don't have it on my-
Making history one more time.
And that was.
But now you're in favor.
Oh, good. I didn't click anything, and nothing popped up. Other than we put up the
Now
hand.
you're against it again. So you just keep changing.
Well, I can't make up my mind.
Counselor Billingsley, would you like me to select your vote for you?
Yeah, nothing popped up on my screen.
Okay,
I voted against.
I don't want to assume, but
Be voting in favor or against tabling?
Me? I'm in
Counselor
favor,
Billingsley.
but
Counselor Billingsley.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm in favor.
no, yeah, no.
and then Counselor
Pick one.
Adderley.
Pick one.
Karen,
I am for.
thank you.
Decisive
Thank
as
you.
hell.
I will make a note with iCompass to see what I can do to fix that on my
Sure.
end.
That is carried unanimously. Thank you for your patience. 17B, notice of motion that we had for benefits for firefighters.
Paul, are you going to speak to this one?
My apologies, council. I'm a little lost on the agenda. Which item are we at?
17B, notice of motion for the benefits of, or benefits for firefighters.
Yes, thank you. City administration has reached out to the AUMA in regards to expanding our benefits to be able to provide for enhanced benefits for our firefighter staff. Administration was unable to receive any of that information back prior to the Christmas break and requires some more time working with AUMA to get that information. We will bring this back to council when it is ready. But currently, we are still investigating, doing environmental scanning with other municipalities and working with the AUMA to get this information.
Councilor Elliott.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Oh, geez. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you.
My heart's beating now. Just, once this comes back to council, it could be it could be approved retroactively, could it not? Like to January the 1st that we start this benefit?
I don't think so, no. Not,
Oh.
if you're not paying premiums, I don't think that you can retroactively pay for benefits.
Okay, I was just thinking if somebody got ill between now and the time that this was passed, they would still not be covered then.
They're not, no. So what I was going to ask or get information on is whether or not members who are accessing counseling or psychological services, that they're able to submit the bill to the city while we work towards getting the benefit implemented, so that there's still coverage for the members. Correct, yeah. Well, until we decide whether or not we're going to add the benefit, or
If we chose to add the benefit, though, it wouldn't be retroactive into 2021, is what
No.
I'm asking. So
No.
if somebody had counseling because of a really bad fire that happened in August, or a really bad car accident, motor vehicle accident,
we currently have an employee assistance program for the firefighters that they're covered for. I had 3 sessions with a counselor. So that's currently covered under the benefits that are available to them. I'm asking that if they need to go beyond that,
right?
Whether it's more counseling or through a psychologist or to a psychologist, that the city covers those expenses until the benefit is either figured out through Alberta municipalities, or we can find a different way to offer that benefit to the members.
I'm just clarifying, commencing January 1, 2022.
Correct,
So
yes.
from the start of this year, people who are getting counseling,
Yes,
not somebody who got it in 2021.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
There isn't.
Request to speak here somewhere.
Yeah.
There.
So because there's
There's no motion right now. It's just for
Yeah.
discussion based on the agenda item.
So you should be able to still see the request to speak on the
Yep,
top.
he's got it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So for clarification only, Bill is asking for retroactive into last year. And then Tyler, you were talking about it being retroactive to January 1.
If there's a motion coming out of this, that the city covers any counseling expenses over and above the employee assistance program, I would say started retroactive to January 1, 2022. I didn't know that you were asking if we could go back. Oh, yeah.
Right. So, but typically when the benefits kick in for client A, B, C, D, it's from the time you start taking out your premiums, if you will.
Correct.
So you're saying then, in your mind, that once the premiums get put in place with whatever agreement we have, those folks would be covered,
Yes.
and that we would cover the gap,
From January 1, 2022
To when it's
until there's a
implemented.
benefit in place.
and that'll be part of a conversation about the whole thing. We're not agreeing to that today.
No, I would like to agree to it today. I would, what I'm looking for, what I'll do is pass the chair off, and I'll make that motion following this, that we provide benefit or that financial coverage to members until we can get a benefit in place, or if we can get a benefit in place. If it comes back to council that we aren't able to get a benefit in place, either through Alberta municipalities, or if we go to another benefit agency, whatever, that we're able to find that my motion would then stop with the implementation of a new benefit, or it then becomes a discussion then on what the city is going to do once we know whether or not we can or cannot get a benefit for our members.
Thank you.
Sue.
Through the chair to all of council, if this does get approved, could there be a dollar value attached to it so that we know what that is? Thank you.
Councillor Blatz.
Sorry, I should have used the request to speak thing, but how many members are there for the fire department?
30, I believe.
30. So the average psychology visit is around $200. So I guess we could kind of figure out a dollar value through that. Just by 2 cents.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to you, seeing so you seem to know about this, but this would put, or through to Sue, through the chair to Sue, this would put the firefighters in line with all the rest of the city employees, is correct? I asked this before, but I'm just.
Not specifically in terms of those benefits, but if we were going to have a motion where we were covering counseling benefits for firefighters, we could set it to what current staff are getting.
Thank you.
If we set a dollar figure to it. Yeah. Oh, I should have constructed a motion. Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute recess. And it's probably going to be like 8. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. I just had to get the motion wordsmith. I will turn the meeting over to Councillor Billingsley to chair. You are Councillor Billingsley. Imagine if we had started at like 4 o'clock. Yeah. All right. Does he see the request to speak?
If you have something on the board, I can.
Oh. You can't see my request to speak, Councillor Billingsley, so I'll put my hand up old school.
Mayor Ganem.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to make a motion. I move that City Council directs administration to cover psychologist, psychiatric, or clinical counseling expenses for Wetaskiwin Fire Service members for the paid on call Wetaskiwin Fire Service members to an allowable max of $1,500 per person per year until the city is able to secure benefits for them to be funded from the existing benefits budget. If benefits cannot be secured, the expenses will be brought back for discussion, and I'd like to speak to that if I can.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So currently, our fire services have a benefit in place through the Employee Assistance Program. It gives a member up to 3 counseling sessions. And from personal experience, I can tell you that that isn't enough. One of the reasons that I think that the city looking after its fire service members is important is that it could potentially have an impact on our WCB claims. If a member goes off for any injury, be it physical or mental, it would get covered through WCB. This also has an impact on the fire service as well. We finished off 2021 with 690 calls, which is probably at least 2 times the number of calls that a department would respond to a similar size department. So we run into the risk of now if members aren't doing well, they aren't responding to calls or mistakes on calls can happen. They have a work and home life that gets impacted by the psychological trauma that they experience serving for our fire service. And I mean, I could list you off 100 different things that could happen without proper intervention. And of course, a member taking their own life, which we see in a number of different and all emergency services throughout the world, regardless. But I just think that if we're able to look after the mental health of our members, we should do that. And I'm fortunate that through my role on council, I have benefits that cover this up to that $1,500 a year. And I would like to see that our members are also looked after in the same way.
Any further discussion? Councillor Blatz.
So I am definitely in support of this motion. I have needed to go to see a psychologist on my own as well. Being in a healthcare background, that's not abnormal. Anybody that's been first responding in any of these sects like firefighting, RCMP, healthcare, you usually do end up needing psychology services at some point throughout your career, just with all of the different things that you get to see. I would not have been able to afford counseling for myself if I didn't have these benefits, and thus I wouldn't have been able to go. And I felt like being able to have the opportunity to have these services for myself has been life-changing for me, and I would want that for anyone that does not have those benefits. And so I think that giving the opportunity to have that type of life-changing and ultimately life-saving services given to our firefighters, I think is something that I would be very happy to support.
Councillor Everly.
Thank you through the chair also to council. I too am in full support of this motion. It doesn't even matter as a first responder. I think that the first responders should be treated as all city staff. We are in a position to provide what is, again, as has been said by the previous two, life-changing for those of us who have been able to have the opportunity to have proper counseling, psychiatric care to get us into the places we are, whether or not we've received a first responder trauma or just our lives in general. Mental health should be treated as important as physical health, and I'm in full support. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. Firefighters also attend motor vehicle accidents, which could be anywhere from just a banged up car to where somebody has actually died or maimed in a very bad way. So that has a terrible psychological effect, and that impacts the family as well. My question, and I am in favor of this, my question, Mr. Chair, through to the mayor, will this cover the families as well, this $1,500, or just the individual firefighter?
Just the individuals.
Pardon me?
Just the individuals.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Should we have a date on there? Just because the way it's read, that $1,500 would go on till ever.
Until the city is able to secure benefits, or if they're not, if it comes back that there isn't a benefit available, then that comes back for discussion then.
Then we should have a time frame on that, or is your motion basically if it's never brought back, it would continue forever?
No, so right now administration is looking into benefits for the members. If it comes back that there isn't a benefit available, that'll get brought back to council, and then we can have this discussion. If it gets brought back that there is a benefit available, then this motion is done and it carries on in terms of the benefit that's provided through the city.
Councillor Nielsen?
I'm opposed to the motion, not because I'm opposed to the intent. Because like everyone here, I think it's important that we give our staff the supports they need. The reason I'm opposed to the motion is I think we're already setting ourselves up a precedent that we're going to pay the $1,500 and until we get benefits, and if we can't get benefits, then we're going to have a discussion. But then I think we've already set the precedent. As soon as you've started paying up to $1,500, how do you back off that position to $1,200 or $1,100 or $900 or whatever it happens to be? Because then all of a sudden you've been discriminatory to those who have received service previously and those that will be getting it in the future. I agree with Tyler's comment prior to the motion that I believe that we would like to see our firefighters get the same benefits as our staff and work to that end. And to me, we're not working to that end, we're committing to it right up front. And for that reason, I'm opposed to the way it's written. And again, not the intent.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. Just, Mr. Chair, through to Tyler. Tyler, you want this starting January 1st, 2022, which I think should be in the motion as well.
Correct, yep. I'll take that as an amendment, friendly amendment,
Thank you.
effective January 1, 2022. No, after expenses. Second line. Yeah, either there or after members, either way. I'm not sure which one reads better. Sorry, effective. No, I don't know if it goes there or after fire service members. I'm just not sure which way it reads better.
Good?
Yep.
Okay. Councillor Lonsdale first.
Thank you. Through to the chair. I am in favor of this motion. Being related to an ex-firefighter, working very closely with some firefighters and actually working with Tyler as well. And also being a person who has had to reach out on different occasions for counseling of different sorts. We all know how hard it can be even just to make that decision to do that and to reach out. So I also know quite often the fire department is short and it's not always that easy to recruit people. So I think anything we can do to enhance, to bring him even on board as to what we are like with the rest of the city, I think is a good idea. Thank you.
Through the chair to council, I am also wondering if we should put something in with respect to staff that are already covered, that are also paid on call firefighters. So if they're already covered through our benefits, they would not qualify for this.
The staff that are covered aren't paid on call. That's why I added the paid on call.
Yeah, but we have some paid on call firefighters that are full-time staff.
Oh,
So I wonder if there's just a clause in there that says for all paid on call Wetaskiwin Fire Service members that are not
city staff.
city staff.
Yep.
Yeah, or city staff currently receiving benefit.
Yep.
Sorry, Karen. Yeah, fire that are not city staff. Members that are not currently, yes. City staff receiving benefits.
Should the word max be changed to maximum? Yes.
Just be to a maximum, not allowable maximum.
Okay, and Wayne, did you?
Yes.
Councilor Nielsen, sorry.
And Tyler, perhaps or Sue would know this. If there are already services available, like you said, but there's only up to 3 sessions. Is that where it starts? So automatically you get those 3 sessions before you get services beyond that? Can you not take those? Can a person jump straight to a psychologist or psychologist without dealing with like this?
The psychologist can be the employee assistance program. Like there's a psychologist in that employee assistance program, right? That's just that's one benefit that we have that's available right now. So then if that's not a policy, but if the series of events is that you access the EAP
First.
and if you need further counseling, then this is available.
So the caveat would be that they would do the
EAP first.
EAP first.
Benefits to a maximum of $1,500 per person per year after they've accessed the EAP.
Yeah.
Very wordy.
That's a wrap. Return on sentences.
I don't know. Services is fine, I would imagine.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tyler.
That's okay.
Just in my own little world.
I don't want there to be any confusion. If there aren't benefits available for our members, my expectation is that I will support this in perpetuity.
Sorry, could you?
If it comes back that there isn't a benefit available for our members to have these counseling services provided through a benefit, that if it comes back to us that this isn't available, my support would still be that the city covers its members for counseling services.
But the way the motion reads.
No, I just,
Yes.
Councillor Nielsen had said that we're setting ourselves up, and absolutely we are. My intent would be, if there isn't a benefit available, would absolutely be to support the city covering counseling expenses for our members. I don't want there to be any question whether or not I would support that or not. I absolutely will.
Any further discussion? Yes, there is. Hello, Sue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to qualify it by saying, from an administration perspective, if we cannot find those benefits somewhere else, this would become a budget item. We would request this through a budget item, because right now, through the existing benefits that we have in this motion, it is based on the fact that we typically have 1% attrition a year. And although 1% is quite a bit of money, we can't bank on 1% attrition. So I would, if we cannot find it when we bring this back, I would be looking at making it a budget request.
Perfect. Any further discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed?
Have it on the.
Motion is carried.
Okay.
So do I have to give control back to you, or can I?
No,
keep
you
it?
don't. You can keep it.
Well. Meeting adjourned. Good night. I will pass the chair back to Mayor
Thank
Gavin.
you. We will move along now to 17C, Library Board request for new members.
Afternoon, Council. This is an annual request for decision that administration brings to fill vacancies on the City of Wetaskiwin Library Board. Council annually is requested to consider appointing members at large to serve on the board. Currently, the library board is looking for two members to be filled for the library board. You have received the names of individuals that have applied under separate cover. And with that, I can leave it to council. Do you have any questions?
We need one or two. Two.
Oh, Mark.
Mike. Sorry, Mark Dunbar.
Do we have the names to appoint?
The two names? Kathy's, no. Do you want me to just make the motion?
Yep.
I move that city council appoints Kathy Stephenson and Mark Dunbar to the Wetaskiwin Library Board with terms ending December 31, 2023.
Moved by Councillor Nielsen. Any discussion? We will get notification out to our new board members. I'd like to congratulate our two new board members and thank everyone for putting their name forward and wanting to be a part of our organization. We're ready for the question. Those in favor?
No. Oh, you locked yourself out.
Technology, slowing us down.
Go to your email.
Carried unanimously. Item 17D, Assessment Review Board members.
Good afternoon, council. So similar to the library board, we are also looking for someone to sit on the Local and Composite Assessment Review Board. We have received the names on separate cover, and that's the end of my report if you have any questions. Moved by Councilor Nielsen.
By Councillor Nielsen. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. Those in favor? Again, I'd like to thank everybody that put their name forward to be a part of the Assessment Review Board. And for those on the board, as well as those returning to the board too, I appreciate their time and commitment to our city. Item 17E, the Subdivision Appeal Board.
Same scenario as the Assessment Review Board. This is for the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board. And these are for 3-year terms, and the applicants were shared with council under separate cover. I would like to note, we have enough applications to meet quorum, but not to have a full complement of a board. So if council would like to direct administration to do another call for applicants, I can do that on your behalf. Moved by Councilor Nielsen.
By Councillor Nielsen. Can you read the
Sure.
motion, please?
I move the city council appoints Joyce Gavin Elliott Rediker to the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board, the term ending December 31st, and request administration to call for further nominations or
There,
applications.
okay, my apologies. There is one more name. That's Al Greenslade. Is another one.
He's the gentleman who already has the training.
Yes,
Then we would add Al Greenslade.
thank you.
And does that complete the complement then?
No, we would need an additional one for 5 total.
So then motion calling for further applications would be appropriate.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
That is a separate motion. We'll, first
Separate.
motion is appointing those members, and then
Yep.
we'll have a follow-up motion.
Okay.
Any discussion? Ready for the question? Those in favor? I again would like to thank all of those that had submitted an application and those who are a part of the Subdivision and Appeal Board, working with our community and residents and council, and sometimes administration. And just a motion to call for applications for the SDAB, please.
And is Karen typing that or you want it? Oh, okay.
It's very drafty, so any edits would be appreciated.
I'd like to move the city council directs administration to put out a call for further applications for the SDAB board.
Moved by Councillor Nielsen. Any discussion? Will this be a hand vote or a screen vote?
Could we put a date on this, please? So
Oh,
for when we
close.
have applications due by?
Closing, when would you like it closing?
If we could close by February 2nd, please.
February 2nd it is. Any discussion? Ready for the question? Those in favor? Carried unanimously. And the added agenda item 17F, budget update.
Through the mayor to council. As an update to the draft budget that's going out to the public for consideration and prior to meeting in February, we are currently sitting at a approximately $1.6 million shortfall, which is comprised of handouts were given, comprised of total revenue decreases of $536,080. And in 1 second here. On the right sheet. Apologies. $1,551,459 of expenditure increases that are in excess of or $10,000 or in excess. Staff are still currently working on looking for potential savings to bring the $1.6 million down. But we just wanted to give you a heads up as to where we were sitting right now as it goes out to the public next week. I'm open to any questions.
Are you looking to accept this as information? Is that, or do you need direction from council beyond that?
Through the mayor to council, I'm looking for acceptance as information. And if council wishes to direct, it's in your bailiwick.
Well, I'll take that motion to begin with, and then we can get into the discussion. Somebody make that motion. Councilor Blatz.
I move that that city council accepts the verbal update as information.
Any discussion? Just the, sorry, Alan, the one change you can speak to was the increase in the RCMP contract from 368,290 412,059.
Through the mayor to council and the public. So those are two separate numbers. The letter of 421 relates to the contract increase for the current year, not prior years. And the 368 relates to the increase in the contract into 2022, 2023. So the RCMP has provided a updated budget for 2021 and 2022, which impacts the city. A quarter of that comes into the 2022 budget. And then when all the increases are reflected into the new budget, which is the 2022 to 2023 budget, which is 3/4 of that budget, that is where the 368 comes from. So the 412, and it's interesting in the sense that the letter comes out with 412, but if you're looking at their budget, it actually works out to 438. There's, according to the letter, they've provided a 75% on an expense that in their normal budget, they claim 100% back from the city. So in regards to the 412, which that is being, right now in the budget is being reflected, paid out of stabilization. So that doesn't have a direct impact to to taxes in 2022. In regards to the $1.6 million, staff are looking at potential of bringing forward to council depending if that is the number that we're going forward and as part of the discussion, budget discussions, is to phase that in over time using the stabilization reserve. Such that if it works out to 1 million, 1.6 million, and depending on operating business cases, is to use the stabilization fund to bring it in over 2 or 3 years. And so that would be something that staff will be bringing forward to council for consideration. It hasn't been reflected in this right now. This is just giving with the exception of funding the RCMP for the prior years. This is where it sits right now without using any tax increase or utilizing any reserves. And so just as an update and pending the year end, 2021 year end, where we anticipate or where potentially the stabilization reserve would be sitting at is just under $1.2 million. And there is also the contingency reserve. Again, it's specific on what it can be used for at $1.5 million. So those are the reserves that are currently on the books. So just to give you the heads up, and as the year end is being finalized, I've talked to the manager of finance in regards to looking at the carry forward projects from 2021 into 2022 so that we have proper accounting. I know that the other GMs have been reviewing that, and I have some information so that we have the numbers going forward so that we can identify the reserves, not only from the operating perspective, but also when council is reviewing the capital budget. Councillor Everly.
Through the chair I think it's to Ellen, and mine's just a clarification. Is the information that we were given today similar to the information that the community is going to get? So in a couple of weeks when those numbers are starting to come out, right? Because this is prior to us going out into the world and talking.
To the mayor, this information will be uploaded into the presentation package. So the numbers would be reflective of that. So that is my next goal for this week, is getting those numbers into that to that program, which is going to be honest, is a challenge in regards to doing it. I'm used to having it automatically update from Questica. Unfortunately, I believe I have to do it manually, so I will be going through this exercise again.
Thank you.
Councillor Nielsen.
No, I'm sorry.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, through to Alan. Alan, there's a $1.6 million shortfall. That's what you're suggesting, right? With 1% growth?
Yes.
How much of this can be attributed to COVID, if any?
None.
None? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Billingsley.
Thank you. I guess for me, it's more of a statement than anything. It's very sobering. I do want to thank the department for giving us the bad news, but I'd rather have the bad news than something that wasn't accurate. Obviously, we're going to have some big discussions coming up. $1.6 million is a ton of money. And we're going to have to figure a way of either increasing taxes, cutting services, or a combination thereof, or possibly putting up reserves on some of it. But come budget time, we're going to have some really, really tough decisions to make. I'm just thrilled, as bad news as this is, at least we know where we're at. And I don't know if I want to call this a happy day, because it's not, but at least now we can make informed decisions. So to your department, thank you.
Alan, and number 8 on that page, the transfer of an engineer from utilities to engineering and development operations. So from utilities to development, then does that have an impact on our utilities, or where's the transfer of that?
To the mayor, the transfer is it's coming out of the utilities budget and into, which was a fee-based budget, into the operating budget, which is a tax-based budget.
So we'll see that reflected then in our utilities.
It will be reflected in, depending on how Aquaterra, again, the contract in regards to running the operations, it should see those, technically speaking, those costs come down. But I haven't reviewed that budget inside and out. I believe that they provided 3 scenarios, high, low, medium. And so moving forward, it should show a cost savings, yes.
With lifeguards, the increase in benefit costs to lifeguards of positions that were shown as 1 when they weren't. Is this a one-off in that department, or have we looked at all of the other departments to make sure that we don't have a repetition of accounting for benefits for staff?
Through the mayor, in the analysis that's provided here, there are 2, I believe there was 3 in there, but there's 2 of the major impacts, which were at the pool aquatics, but also in the parks department, which is further down on the 660. It's item number 16.
Oh, yeah. So then I guess learning from our mistakes moving forward, how does a department go from identifying 18 staff, recording them as 1, or in the pool 7 and 6 and 6 recordings as 1, moving forward to make sure that this doesn't happen? Like, are there policies in place? Is there training? Is there, like, what do we do to safeguard us from this happening again?
Through the mayor to council, it's in regards to the utilization of the program and sitting down and ensuring that there is, documentation in place to move forward. Again, there's two ways you can budget for salaries. One is position, the other is employee, or you can combine them in position and employees. I have structured the budget this time around based on position. At the end of the day, it technically doesn't matter the person in the position, it's the position. So that will be it. In regards to, the combining, the thought was, I don't know the thought, it's simpler to do. but it does have that impact on the statutory benefits. Not on the employee benefits, because generally speaking, they're casual employees. And depending, and again, these are estimates, and moving forward, you may, I understand in regards to the aquatic center that there will be a report coming forward in regards to staffing of the aquatic center, given its difficulty and may a different structure of moving forward. This will make it clearer on how it's going, especially when you're looking at the backup, as opposed to you just see one position at, 1,800% or whatever, or 180%, which is 1.8 employees. So 1,800% is, unless you're looking at that line, you just think of it as one employee. And so this is trying to, make it easier to see where the numbers are and moving forward. That's, I guess that's the way that I approach the audit. And again, it gives the employees, it's like in regards to transportation parks where they are, for 17 weeks, as opposed to having one employee, which is effectively representing 3 employees. It's a better way to get a better view of how many staff members that you have.
Is there consideration to the back pay for the RCMP's new contract as well, where that funding might come from?
With with regards to the initial amount of 412, that is coming out of, it's been budgeted out of contingency, and that will be brought forward to council as part of the discussion.
Sorry, so maybe I'm misunderstanding. That 412 or the 368 that you got listed there, one is the new cost of our RCMP because they've gone up 23%. Is the other one then the back pay that will be owed?
Yeah, the forecasted back pay, but only for the current, I want to say fiscal year for the RCMP. That is their March to March 21.
Yeah, no. The bill that we're going to receive, because the contract is effective 2016 till now.
Yeah.
So I understand the increase moving forward. That lump sum payment that we're going to have to make from 2016 is what I'm referring to, unless one isn't the other.
Oh, that amount has not been reflected in these figures. It is approximately potentially in excess of an additional $800,000.
Yeah, that's just what I wanted to make sure.
Sorry, my apologies.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that we knew that that still is a potential to come.
Yes.
Anything else? I think it's going to be really interesting as we go through our budgeting process, our public consultation. When you see something like this, what the appetite is going to be for what services we're going to cut to not have such a substantial tax increase. And why I think it's so important that the public get involved in our public budget consultation to make sure that we're making decisions in the best interest of our entire community, not just what council hears from a few members of our community. Anything further? Ready for the question? Those in favor? Oh, I voted already. Are you not logged in, or are you wanting to speak?
I just would like to ask, ask a question, Mr. Mayor. We've changed the two open houses to become virtual. And we also have it online that people can get involved with the budget process. What about people who aren't online? How do they get involved in the budget process?
That's a good question. Does the administration have a plan for that?
Through the mayor, we can set up something on the website where they can send in a response form. I will work with communications to see if something can be added on it. And that response form can be left at different locations, be it Manlock Center or the arena, and people can pick it up and provide their comments, and we can bring forward those comments to council.
We make sure that we're advertising that, not just on our website, if we're
Yes.
advertising
Yeah.
it through print media as well.
I'm looking for hard copy, yes, where they could pick
Yeah,
up.
so if we can
thank you.
advertise, we'll advertise through print,
Yeah.
not just virtually or through our website, and then they'll be able to pick copies up, whether it's at City Hall or the Manlock Center. Library. To be able, or the library, to be able to be engaged. Same with.
Thank you.
Still waiting for 2 people to vote. Councillor Nielsen and Councillor Aberley. Do you? I've only got 5. Oh, now I got 6. Just Councillor Aberley. Poor connection down there. You're way too far away. That's fine. We're good. Karen votes for you. You're good. Okay, anything further? I will look for the final motion. Councillor Nielsen, wants to adjourn. Ready for the question? Those in favor? Thank you. Thanks, everyone. This will be interesting to get used to. Thanks, Karen, for your patience. Thank you for having me.